Rachel Zegler was supposed to be Hollywood's golden girl, discovered by Spielberg, thrust into stardom, and handed a major comeback role meant to erase past controversies. But instead of redemption, she's now at the center of a spiraling disaster. Production halted, her behavior questioned, and a growing list of insiders quietly cutting ties. From explosive on-set moments to a social media meltdown that stunned even her own fans, the story unfolding behind the scenes is far messier and far more damaging than anyone expected. Studios have gone silent, co-stars won't speak, and now industry insiders are wondering if Rachel's time in the spotlight is already over. So what really happened? And how did the next big thing become a Hollywood warning story almost overnight? Let's find out exactly why Rachel Zegler's career may be collapsing from the inside. At first glance, it seemed like just another Hollywood hiccup. The studio issued a short, polite press release. Due to scheduling conflicts, production on the upcoming film starring Rachel Zegler has been temporarily paused. No panic, no drama, just a simple logistical delay. But almost immediately, people close to the production started whispering, that's not what really happened. According to insiders, the filming hadn't been going smoothly for weeks. There were missed deadlines, unexplained tension during table reads, and multiple unexplained rewrites being passed around. Something felt off. People weren't just shuffling schedules, they were avoiding confrontation. A member of the crew later said, "The vibe changed fast. Everyone was walking on eggshells, like we were waiting for something to snap." And eventually, it did. But not because of a scheduling mix-up, not because of location issues or equipment. It stopped because of Rachel. She didn't just trigger the delay. According to multiple sources, she was the reason the production came to a complete halt. Not paused, not postponed, stopped dead in its tracks. What followed wasn't damage control, it was chaos control. And it's what makes this story different from your typical celebrity drama. Because when a film gets shut down mid-production and the lead star is at the center of it, the fallout isn't just messy, it's expensive, dangerous, career-altering, and that was only the beginning. It didn't start with a blow-up. In fact, the earliest signs were easy to miss, small behaviors that could have been chalked up to stress or long hours. Rachel would arrive late to set, clutching a latte, laughing with her team as if the 6 a.m. call time was more of a suggestion than a schedule. At first, no one said anything. After all, she was the star. Stars get a little leeway, right? But soon it became more than just lateness. During rehearsals, she'd visibly roll her eyes when given blocking directions. She often appeared distracted during line readings, glancing at her phone between takes, sometimes even mid-scene. One veteran camera operator described it this way: "It felt like she thought the whole production was beneath her, like she was doing us a favor by showing up." Directors and department heads exchanged concerned glances, but most kept quiet. No one wanted to be the first to push back. No one wanted to be the person who challenged the star and got labeled difficult themselves. Because in Hollywood, reputations stick fast. Still, the discomfort began to spread. Crew members whispered during lunch breaks. Makeup artists started coordinating call times just to avoid interacting with her. Even background actors noticed the tension, describing the atmosphere on set as awkward and cold. It wasn't just about diva behavior. There was a growing sense that Rachel didn't respect the work happening around her, that she believed her presence alone was enough, and everyone else was just support staff. But instead of confronting the problem, production tried to tiptoe around it. Meetings were held behind closed doors. Notes were delivered through assistants. Everything was handled delicately, as though one wrong word could spark an explosion. What they didn't realize was that the explosion had already started. They just hadn't felt the full blast yet. Up until this point, people hoped things would eventually smooth out, that Rachel was just adjusting, that the pressure of a high-stakes production might be making her a little edgy, but manageable. But that hope didn't last. The turning point came when Rachel began questioning the script, not during early development, but after the cameras had already started rolling. According to insiders, she didn't just ask for minor changes or tweaks to her dialogue. She wanted substantial rewrites, the kind that shift character motivations and alter plot structure entirely. One writer, speaking anonymously, said, "She wanted the film to reflect her personal brand. She wasn't interested in telling the story as it was written. She wanted to reshape it around herself." This didn't sit well with the creative team, who had spent months finalizing the screenplay. Directors and producers tried to explain that changes this late in the game would cause massive delays and budget overruns. But Rachel reportedly pushed back hard, framing her demands as creative input and calling the original version tone-deaf and outdated. Then came the breaking point. During what should have been a simple direction session, just a quick review of line delivery and pacing, Rachel snapped. Eyewitnesses say it started with a sharp tone, escalated into accusations, and ended with her raising her voice in front of the entire crew. She allegedly accused the director of belittling her talent, dismissed his notes outright, and stormed off the set still in costume. And it wasn't a private confrontation. Extras were watching, cameras were already in place. The meltdown happened out in the open, like a live broadcast of a career unraveling in real time. It was surreal, said one person on set. You could hear a pin drop afterward. No one knew what to do. We just stood there, frozen. Within hours, the production was shut down. The director needed time. The crew needed answers. The studio needed options. But Rachel, she didn't apologize. She didn't regroup. She disappeared from the set like nothing happened, leaving behind a wreckage the entire team had to tiptoe through. Once Rachel walked off set, everything changed. What had been tension in the background suddenly became the only thing anyone could talk about, and not just among crew members. Department heads, producers, and even studio reps began scrambling to assess the damage. It wasn't just about a bad day anymore, it was about whether this project could even be salvaged. That night, the production team held an emergency meeting. Some wanted to press pause, hoping the situation could be calmed down with a few calls, and a formal mediation. Others weren't so optimistic. One producer allegedly said flat out, "This isn't a bump, this is a breakdown. We can't shoot like this." Word spread quickly. A supporting actor reportedly refused to continue filming scenes with Rachel, unless a third party was present. "I'm not stepping into that room without someone else there," they allegedly told their agent. "It's not safe. It's not stable." Makeup artists began rotating shifts just to avoid her trailer. Interns were pulled from personal assistant duty. Some crew members even started requesting to be reassigned to other projects. One assistant director described the atmosphere as completely radioactive. And while the production fractured behind the scenes, Rachel, according to insiders, acted as though she was the one being wronged. She allegedly told crew members she felt attacked and manipulated, that no one respected her voice, that she was being singled out because of her opinions and values. But sympathy was in short supply. Many on set had already made up their minds. "She flipped the entire production upside down," one person said, then tried to play the victim when people pushed back. It was exhausting. What made things worse was that this wasn't some indie film with a flexible budget and an experimental vibe. This was a major studio-backed project, meant to be Rachel's redemption arc, her career relaunch, her moment to prove the critics wrong. Instead, she became the crisis, the story, the liability, and in Hollywood, once you become the headline instead of the project, the clock starts ticking. For those following Rachel Zegler's career from the outside, this incident might have come as a shock. But for those inside the industry, and even for longtime fans, it felt familiar. Too familiar. The truth is, this wasn't Rachel's first run-in with controversy. After being cast as Snow White in Disney's live-action remake, she made headlines not for her performance, but for her attitude during press interviews. She mocked the original film, joked about not needing a prince, and called the 1937 version weird. While some applauded her candor, many others felt she disrespected the very legacy that gave her the role. The backlash was swift. Fans accused her of arrogance, Disney loyalists called for her recasting, and even casual viewers began labeling her as ungrateful and out of touch. Still, at the time, many assumed she would grow from the experience. That maybe she'd been overconfident, but not malicious. That she could learn. But now, with another controversy unraveling, and with even more serious consequences, the public mood has shifted. This wasn't just a one-time misstep, it was beginning to look like a pattern. Rewriting scripts mid-shoot, calling out directors on set, acting like coworkers were beneath her, playing the victim after causing conflict. It all sounded eerily familiar. Reddit threads started lighting up. Fan forums that once debated. Her performances were now filled with memes mocking her downfall. Twitter was even harsher. One viral post summed up the growing sentiment with brutal simplicity. "She's not unlucky, she's unlikable." And that's the line no publicist wants to hear. Because in Hollywood, image is everything. You can survive a flop, you can even survive a scandal. But when the industry and the audience starts to dislike you, that's when doors start closing. And unfortunately for Rachel, those doors were about to slam shut one by one. When a celebrity finds themselves in the middle of controversy, there's usually a playbook. Stay quiet, let the PR team handle it. Wait for the news cycle to move on. But Rachel Zegler didn't follow the playbook. In fact, she shredded it. Instead of issuing a formal statement or expressing regret, Rachel went live on Instagram. No polished lighting, no media consultant-approved backdrop. Just her, in a hoodie, sitting on the floor, and talking directly to the camera. But instead of humility, what viewers got was sarcasm, deflection, and a tone that felt more smug than sincere. "Everyone's ignoring my calls. Whatever. It's chill. I don't even care," she said, laughing with an eye roll. She joked about the production chaos, alluded to unnamed people sabotaging her energy, and at one point said, maybe, "Next time, I'll just show up mute and smile. Would that make everyone happy?" The comments section exploded, and not in the way she hoped. Supporters were stunned. Critics pounced. Even neutral observers couldn't believe what they were watching. "Why is she mocking this?" one user wrote. "This isn't quirky. It's a train wreck." But Rachel wasn't done. During the same rant, she casually mentioned that she'd be appearing on a major late-night talk show and planned to set the record straight, smirking as if it were a threat more than a promise. Within hours, clips from the live were circulating across Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube. Reaction videos popped up, media outlets took notice, and the headlines got harsher. She followed the live stream with a string of TikToks. One video featured her in costume from the halted film, lip-syncing to a trending audio clip with the caption, "There's two of me, double the trouble. Am I right?" What may have been meant as self-aware humor came off as flippant, and the timing couldn't have been worse, especially with rumors swirling that her dual role on the project had been one of the production's biggest stress points. Even her most loyal fans were having second thoughts. "I want to believe in her," one fan tweeted. But this feels like self-sabotage in real time. Behind the scenes, her team was reportedly panicking. One insider claimed they had prepared a written apology and a full PR strategy, but Rachel refused to use it. "I'm done playing nice," she allegedly said. Instead of damage control, she doubled down. That decision may have cost her more than just public goodwill. According to sources, the studio's legal team immediately began reviewing her contract, specifically looking at non-disparagement and confidentiality clauses. They weren't just annoyed, they were concerned. Because now, it wasn't just a reputation issue, it was a potential legal one. When chaos hits a major production, studios usually step in fast, with statements, spin, and damage control. But in Rachel Zegler's case, there was none of that. No reassuring press release, no social media post defending her, no executive making the rounds with reporters to clarify the situation. Just silence. Cold, calculated, deafening silence. And in Hollywood, silence isn't passive. It's strategic. Because when a studio chooses not to defend its lead actress, especially one who was supposed to carry a multi-million-dollar film, it sends a message. We're done. Insiders say calls went unanswered. Her team reportedly reached out to the studio for clarity, support, even a joint statement, but none came. Instead, the only public comment from the studio was a vague and sterile update. "We are currently evaluating scheduling adjustments in line with our commitment to delivering the highest quality production." It was the kind of corporate speak that said everything without saying anything at all. And the silence didn't stop there. Other actors who had previously praised Rachel publicly? Quiet. Directors she'd worked with before? Nowhere to be found. Even the talk show she teased during her live stream quietly removed her name from its upcoming guest list. Media requests for comments were met with no response or were flatly declined. One journalist who had previously profiled Rachel told a colleague off the record, "I've been advised not to revisit the story." Even Rachel's own peers, those who had stood beside her at premieres, award shows, and press junkets, suddenly became unavailable for comment. And when a few were asked in live interviews about the situation, they changed the subject, smiled awkwardly, or gave answers so vague they may as well have said, "I want nothing to do with this." That's when people started paying attention, not to what was being said, but to what wasn't. Because silence especially in a business, driven by image and alliances, is rarely accidental. It's a signal, and that signal was clear. Rachel Zegler was no longer someone worth defending. Behind the scenes, the damage control wasn't about saving her, it was about containing her, limiting exposure, cutting losses, and figuring out how to move forward, without dragging the entire production and the studio's reputation down with her. Once the studio went silent, the rest of the industry followed suit, but not without consequences. Behind closed doors, conversations were already taking place about Rachel's future, and they weren't optimistic. One particularly telling sign came when a rising actress, previously attached to a future ensemble film that included Rachel, suddenly backed out. Officially, it was for creative differences. Unofficially, it was a warning shot. I don't want to be associated with this storm. Other actors began quietly asking their agents not to pair them with Rachel in future casting calls. Brands that had signed her for promotional campaigns quietly pulled ads, scrubbing her image from scheduled rollouts. No announcements, no drama, just a quiet erasure. One fashion label that had previously featured her in its seasonal campaign simply deleted all related posts. When asked about it, they gave no comment. Meanwhile, inside talent agencies, Rachel's name was being flagged, not blacklisted, but marked as high risk. That label comes with consequences: fewer meetings, less consideration for leading roles, and cautious, highly monitored contracts. One PR rep reportedly warned their client, "If she's on set, you better have a lawyer on speed dial." The whispers turned into industry protocol. Some producers began suggesting behavioral clauses, specifically tailored for working with Rachel, outlining consequences for unprofessional conduct or public outbursts. In short, studios were preparing to protect themselves from her, and the dominoes kept falling. Journalists who had once praised Rachel began combing back through her old interviews, re-examining past quotes that once seemed confident but now read as entitled. Tweets that had been dismissed as quirky suddenly felt like red flags. Even late-night hosts, known for fawning over celebrities, began skipping over her name in monologue lineups. For an actress who was once everywhere, Rachel Zegler was suddenly nowhere. Not trending, not quoted, not invited. And in an industry that thrives on visibility and momentum, that kind of quiet can be louder than any scandal. Rachel Zegler's situation isn't just about one actress spiraling out of control. It's about an entire industry waking up to a bigger problem. For years, studios chased authenticity. They wanted stars with real opinions, bold personalities, and massive social media followings. And Rachel seemed like the perfect fit: outspoken, energetic, and unafraid to speak her mind. But now, that formula is being re-evaluated because the very traits that made her marketable are the same ones causing reputational damage. Insiders say that Rachel's meltdown has sparked a wave of changes across casting offices and legal departments. Behavioral clauses, once reserved for actors with known substance issues or legal problems, are now being included for young, socially active stars. These new terms allow studios to terminate contracts if a celebrity's off-camera behavior causes disruption, damages the project, or triggers negative press. Essentially, it's no longer just about talent, it's about liability. One casting director reportedly told a trade magazine, off the record, Rachel made activism look bratty, and that hurt a lot of people trying to do it right. That statement echoed a growing concern that one star's behavior could undermine a larger movement. Young actresses with genuine causes and thoughtful perspectives were suddenly being told to tone it down, to stop posting, to avoid controversy. Because now, everyone's afraid of the next Rachel Zegler situation. Studios have also started investing more in media training, especially for Gen Z stars. They want press-ready, camera-conscious talent who can handle tough interviews without flipping the narrative. One young actress was reportedly advised by her team to stay off Twitter entirely for 6 months until her next project wrapped. Another was asked to delete a thread criticizing studio executives shortly after signing a multi-film deal. Even agents and managers are shifting their strategies. They're telling clients to avoid hot takes, stay neutral, and let the work speak for itself. A complete reversal from just a few years ago, when viral moments and bold statements were seen as career boosters. Rachel's downfall proved that virality doesn't equal value, especially if it creates chaos in the process. And perhaps most telling, executives aren't even being subtle about it anymore. A streaming platform reportedly passed on a new project simply because Rachel was in talks to be attached, not confirmed, not cast, just mentioned. That alone was enough for them to pull out. Her collapse isn't just affecting her, it's reshaping how the next generation of talent is handled. Because now, studios aren't just casting actors, they're performing risk assessments. Hollywood loves a redemption story. From Robert Downey Jr.'s dramatic comeback to Drew Barrymore's reinvention, the industry is full of once-doomed stars who clawed their way back into public favor. But here's the catch. Those comebacks all had one thing in common: support. A mentor, a loyal fan base, a studio willing to take a chance. In Rachel Zegler's case, there's none of that. Right now, Rachel's not facing criticism from just fans or trolls. She's facing something far more dangerous: professional isolation. The people who once championed her are now distancing themselves. Her co-stars won't speak up. Her PR team, once active and protective, has gone radio silent. She's being quietly recast from projects that were supposed to be major milestones in her career, and the official explanations are paper thin. Scheduling conflicts, creative realignment, production changes. But everyone in the industry knows exactly what those words really mean. According to insiders, even her upcoming rom-com, once promoted as her next big breakout, is moving forward without her. Studio execs decided to recast the lead entirely rather than risk another production disaster. Publicly, it'll be spun as logistics. Privately, it's damage control. And what about the fans? Once a key part of her rapid rise, even they seem to be turning away. Scroll through social media, and you'll see a mix of frustration, disappointment, and apathy. Comments like, "She had so much potential," or "I wanted to root for her, but she keeps making it harder," are becoming more common. Even, loyal supporters are struggling to defend her actions or understand them. It's not that a comeback is impossible, but the odds are getting slimmer with every passing week. For someone to rebound from this kind of fall, they need to show growth, take accountability, and rebuild trust, not just with the audience, but with the people who hire them. And right now, Rachel isn't doing any of that. She's still posting, still joking, still deflecting, still acting like this is just a bump in the road, while the rest of Hollywood seems to be quietly paving over the space where her name used to be. The question now isn't if she can come back, it's whether anyone still wants her to. In the end, Rachel Zegler's story isn't just about one film falling apart or one actress making bad decisions. It's about what happens when talent, ego, and timing collide in the worst possible way, under the spotlight of an industry that rarely gives second chances without a powerful reason. And right now, Rachel's running out of reasons. This wasn't a scandal that could be brushed off with a tweet. It wasn't a tabloid rumor that would fade by the weekend. This was a full-blown industry breakdown. She didn't just lose control of a narrative, she lost control of a production, of her public image, and most dangerously, of how the people in power perceive her. In Hollywood, perception is everything. It decides whether your name ends up on a poster or in the pile of casting calls that never get a callback. What's particularly haunting about this story is the silence, not just from the studio or the cast or the agents, but from the system that once elevated her. The absence of support is louder than any headline. When a star falls, you usually hear whispers of comeback talks, feelers from indie directors, sympathy from past collaborators. But with Rachel, nothing. Just a slow, quiet exit from every room she once walked into like she owned it. Even if she wants to bounce back, she'll have to do it without the machinery that usually fuels a redemption arc. No guiding director, no studio partnership, no PR agency willing to clean up the mess. And most importantly, no audience begging to see her rise again. Perhaps the most tragic part is that she doesn't seem to fully realize it yet. Her social media presence still feels performative, half defiant, half sarcastic. Instead of reflection, we're seeing irony. Instead of accountability, we're seeing indifference. And in an era where one emotional interview, one sincere apology, or one thoughtful gesture can rebuild a brand, Rachel appears to be digging in. But Hollywood is already moving on. Roles are being recast, campaigns are launching without her. The next generation of talent is learning from her mistakes in real time. And the industry she was supposed to lead, it's reshaping itself around the lessons her downfall provided. So, the question now isn't whether Rachel Zegler will return. It's whether there's still a space for her to return to. Because sometimes the most devastating endings don't come with explosions. They come with silence and a door that closes quietly without ever locking, because it doesn't need to. What do you think about everything that's happened? Is Rachel being unfairly targeted? Or did she bring this downfall on herself? Leave a comment, write whatever you're thinking. We rate everything. And if you're into the untold stories behind Hollywood's biggest meltdowns, go ahead and like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. We've got a lot more coming, and trust me, you won't want to miss what's next.